event in our spring speaker series here at the Petchesky Conservation Center. This is the home of the New Mexico Land Conservancy. In case you're not familiar with our work, we are a statewide land trust whose mission is pretty simple. We help people conserve the land they love, and birders like you all love migratory bird habitat, right? So we spend a lot of time thinking about how we can protect land that accommodates birds as they make that tremendous journey from north to south or vice versa. So that includes everything from protecting large acreage ranches in the northeast part of the state and parts of the shortgrass prairie that are increasingly fragmented and subject to land use conversion, to smaller properties down in the Bosque near Corrales. So just 2 weekends ago, we had an event down there. We partnered with the Indigenous Farm Hub to organize a bird walk to see some of the amazing species that hang out in the Bosque and show folks all the benefits of protecting land in such a fragile ecosystem. Tonight, we're excited to welcome back Milu Velardi. Milu is a certified wildlife biologist originally from Colorado. She now works for Los Alamos National Labs in their biological resources department, something, where she helps with endangered species recovery and compliance work, as well as migratory bird research and work. She's also an avid caver and bat enthusiast. So some of you may remember her from our talk in October when she told us all about the wonderful benefits of bats in New Mexico. So we're excited to have her back, and please join me in welcoming back Milu Velardi.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Well, it's so nice to see those faces. It's nice to have that reaction when he says bats, because most people get nervous, but it's always nice to hear that positive sound. I wanted to start out reading a little excerpt from a book that some of you have probably heard of. There was a movie done, The Big Year. And this was put out about 20 years ago now, but it was sort of when I was starting out as my bird career was happening. And there was always a part about hummingbirds that I thought really was wonderful. So on a sultry April night, deep in the Yucatan jungle, a ruby-throated hummingbird stirred. She was hungry, but that was nothing new. For the past 2 weeks, she had done little more than eat. She had downed so many aphids and spiders and bees and nectar, especially nectar, that she had nearly doubled her body weight. Now she weighed as much as 2 pennies. Her breast bulged with yellow globs of fat. She needed those globs. Her life depended on them. At her tail, a steady breeze blew. It had been 106 degrees during the day, and the heat stifled everything in the jungle. Even the keel-billed toucan, that screeching big honkered bird, made famous by Fruit Loops. But the sun had dropped below the beach half hour ago. The trees were coming alive, not with calls of local birds, but with the trills of travelers like her. Everything felt right. She lifted off her perch, and so did waves of others. There were tanagers as red as fire plugs, and buntings as painted as Vegas showgirls, and warblers, so many warblers, with orange faces and blue backs and yellow bellies and sides with zebra stripes. Beside the thousand-winged art show, the female ruby-throated hummingbird was a mere plain Jane, a pinky-sized creature with green back, dull belly, and brown flanks. Her goal, however, was astounding. Tonight, she would try to fly 500 miles over the Gulf of Mexico. If she stopped just once to rest, she would die. And if she made it, she would earn the chance for 2 or 3 seconds of copulation on the ground with a promiscuous male with a brilliant red throat. To navigate her nonstop nighttime ocean crossing, the ruby-throated hummingbird would rely on a brain smaller than a pea. Humans with noggins 10,000 times larger were still trying to comprehend this incredible journey, the marvel of migration. If you haven't picked this up, it's wonderful. The Big Year. Does anybody here know what that name comes from? The Big Year? I'm surprised you might know this. So there's a competition that happens every year, and tends to be people who have access to funds will travel for a calendar year around the world trying to identify as many birds as they can. So they go to basically every continent, and it's a competition. And there was a very funny movie made about it. So I suggest the book. So The Journey Above. I am here at a good time of year to talk about migration. What is migration? Anybody want to summarize something like that? Migration? Perfect. Yeah.
As the seasons change.
As the seasons change. What migrates? Not just birds, right? Snakes? Yes.
They don't migrate far like a mile,
Yeah.
but they do.
Yeah. And we'll talk about some of that short distance migration. Very cool. Bats migrate. Yep. Lots of things. People migrate, right? Or they used to. So scientifically speaking, animal migration is the regular long distance seasonal movement of animal populations between different habitats to find food, better climates, or breeding grounds. Unlike random movement, migration involves predictable two-way journey, often returning to the exact same location, and that are driven by ecological changes and inherited instinct. I do have to read my notes, I will let you know, because I've been up since 4. It is migration time, so we're up with the birds. These movements often occur across vast distances by land, sea, or air, and can involve enormous numbers of individuals. Migration also requires tremendous energy and preparation, many species storing fat reserves and using specialized navigation abilities to complete the journey. Migration is driven by survival, helping animals find food, reproduce successfully, and avoid harsh environmental conditions. But how do they know where to go? Well, birds in particular know where to migrate through a combination of genetic programming and a complex suite of built-in environmental navigation tools. It's still a mystery to science. First-time flyers rely on innate instincts, while older birds use celestial, magnetic, and landscape cues to map thousands of miles of travel. So some fun little tidbits: at least 4,000 species of birds regularly migrate, which is about 40% of the total number of birds in the world. Birds can reach great heights as they migrate. Any guesses as to the highest migrant level while they're flying? Many thousands of feet. Throwing it out. You're not far off. You're not far off. So regularly reaching altitudes of up to 5.5 miles above sea level, over the Himalayas in India is one of those places. The bird with the recorded highest altitude, which is an unfortunate story, was a griffon vulture, collided with a plane at 37,000 feet. That's amazing, right? That's 7 miles. And that was back in 1975. And of course, it was sucked into an engine. The award for the fastest bird goes to the great snipe. Miles per hour, any thoughts?
7.
You're pretty close. You're going to get it. By the end of this, you're going to nail it. 60 miles per hour. They can go 4,200 miles at a speed of 60 miles per hour. That's just flying. I'm assuming that's with a tailwind, catching something. Yep. No other animal travels at such a speed for such a long distance. They use tailwinds to help them go faster, but the snipe speed is a mixture of other things too. It's just their dynamics. Even birds that don't fly migrate, right? Emus. They travel for miles on foot to find food. And penguins, of course, migrate by swimming. We can't forget the penguins. Okay, so if we focus on birds because they're the most commonly known migrants, continental scale bird migration is a massive biannual phenomenon involving billions of birds, often traveling thousands of miles between breeding and wintering grounds, driven primarily by resource availability rather than just cold, right? People usually think that it's to get out of the cold, but it's really about food. So continental migration is one of the largest and most coordinated movements. Across North America, birds travel along major migration pathways known as flyways. Anybody know what flyway we are considered part of? We're the central flyway. Yeah, with parts of, that can shift a little bit, but we're central. Timing journeys to coincide with seasonal bursts of food availability, like insects emergence and plant growth. The scale is staggering. Radar studies suggest that during peak migration, especially right now, more than 500 million birds may cross the United States in a single night. You don't even know that's happening while you're home sleeping. Birds move north in spring because no longer longer daylight hours and seasonal productivity. Northern summers provide abundance of food and resources. And they rely on environmental cues like day length, temperature, weather patterns, and wind conditions to determine when to move. And what's interesting is that's starting to shift, right? So we're picking up birds. We do a banding station where I work now, and we're picking up migrants that are at a strange time. We're also picking up young birds that are fledging already, which is remarkable. It's very early for that. So they're taking these cues from temperature. And it tends to be. It tends to be at night. I think it's just an ability to travel by celestial navigation is a big part of it. So they're using stars, right? And then there's a predator component as well, but they do migrate during the day. It happens. They have to overcome enormous natural barriers, deserts, mountain ranges, the Gulf of Mexico. They use remarkable orientation abilities, and they use consistent routes guided by coastlines. They look at the ground below them as well. So extraordinary long distance migration spans mind-boggling distances. Birds navigate using stars, as we talked about. Marine species will follow ocean currents and temperatures. It connects ecosystems across the globe. A bird seen in New Mexico during migration may spend its winters in Central America and breeding in Canada and Alaska. In this way, migration links habitats, countries, and continents together in a way that is most remarkable. And so you may ask here, why the picture of the monarch butterfly? They do migrate. They do, but they're very bizarre with the way that they migrate. We'll talk a little bit about it here. The monarch butterfly is a multi-generational migration wonder. Millions of North American monarchs migrate 2,800 miles to a specific forest in Mexico. And it's in central Mexico. They go there for the winter. The most fascinating part is that the butterflies that return north in the spring are the great-grandchildren of those that flew south. And we still don't really know how they do that. So it's just a program. Is it programmed somehow instinctually? It's remarkable. I don't know. I would assume so. Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah. Closely related. Let me see here. So let me make sure oh, there we go. When we think about migration, we often picture those long distances, thousands of miles, but migration occurs at different scales, as we talked about with snakes, for example. Different strategies show how animals adapt movement patterns to survive in changing environments. Can you tell what maybe these three different animals have in common?
Rain.
There is that. Actually, I didn't even put that together. I didn't even connect the ocean part of it, but that's true. They need water, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's partly right. These three species are the longest migrants that we know, basically, within our part of the world. So the Arctic tern has the longest migration of any bird. That's pictured here. It travels to the Arctic for breeding in Alaska, Greenland, Canada, and Northern Europe, and it goes all the way back to the Antarctic. It extends 44,000 to up to 60,000 miles. Rather than flying straight, it follows curved ocean currents and prevailing winds and productive feeding areas. I don't know if you could do that over land. That's a very interesting connection that they're all in water. The leatherback sea turtle holds the record for the longest migration of any sea turtle. They travel more than 10,000 miles between tropical nesting beaches and cold northern feeding grounds. Some migrate across the entire Pacific Ocean, moving between beaches in Indonesia and then to the west coast of North America. Despite traveling enormous distances, leatherbacks can return to the exact same nesting beach where they were born, using Earth's magnetic field and ocean cues to navigate. And last, the gray whale is one of the longest migrations of any mammal. Gray whales travel up to 12,000 miles round trip between warm breeding lagoons in Mexico and cold feeding grounds in the Arctic. They follow coastlines along the Pacific, mothers leading calves on their first migration north. It allows whales to take advantage of rich Arctic food while giving birth in safer, warmer waters in the winter. All very different sized, all different shaped, doing extraordinary things. Could be, there is a connection. Yeah, what a wonderful movie. So again, what these species might have in common. We talk about different kinds of migration. Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah. Grasslands. Mm-hmm. That's a very good guess. They're short distance migrants. So not every migration is a massive feat, right? So this refers to seasonal movements that occur over a relatively small geographic area within the same region, state, or country. They're smaller in scale, but they're still critical in survival. So the bison follows something called a green wave. They travel 50-mile route back and forth, getting over 1,000 miles per year with that movement between high elevation summer grass to lower elevation in the valleys. The red-winged blackbird doesn't fly thousands of miles. We have them almost all year round. Short distance or partial migrants in fall, they may migrate only a few hundred miles to the southern part of the country in search of unfrozen foraging grounds. So they can be a little bit more flexible with their timing and the way that they move. While the long distance migrants rely on strict internal timing cues, these ones can sort of look at temperature and things that are happening around them, drought, food supply, and it's the flexibility that allows them to do well. I mean, red-winged blackbirds do well. They're survivors for sure. This beautiful bluebird, western bluebird. I think it is a western, yeah. We have them, so we have nest boxes where we're at, and they're just spectacular. And the boys are all very glamorous right now. It's really remarkable. They're very handsome birds. That's a good question. We actually have, I'm trying to sort of picture it in my mind. We have nest boxes that are only maybe a couple hundred feet apart. And they nest successfully. I don't know if that stops the males from, being territorial, but the females certainly seem okay with it. What happens there, though, is we sort of created a feeding ground for bears. So we have acres and acres of bluebird boxes that do very well. And then we come back and boxes are down and eggs are eaten. Snakes like it too. So we sort of created that environment a little bit. But it's a neat study. We've had it for decades. We're looking at success and elevation gradient changes as temperature's changing. So this is altitudinal migration, a good example. Tanagers do the same thing here. Form of seasonal movement in which animals shift their elevation. Unlike the long distance, it's only a few miles maybe geographically, but they can go thousands of feet of change elevationally. And of course, that allows more flexibility. So it's definitely very common in mountainous regions, dramatically different environments over short distances. The higher elevations are cooler, can be wetter, longer periods of snow cover, and the opposite down below. It's especially common here in the Rockies and the Southwest mountain ranges. In New Mexico, birds, elk, mule deer, black bears, bats, and even insects can do this kind of migration. Some breed in high elevation conifer forests during the summer and then come into the foothills during the winter. So it can happen different ways. Raptors shift elevation seasonally as prey availability changes. So some examples that we may have here: the saw-whets, dippers, bluebirds, brewers, house finches, of course. And then the eagle is a great example. This is the last type of most commonly known migration. It's not all or nothing, right? So some migrations occur in what scientists call partial migration. They migrate while others remain where they are. Eagles are a good example of that. In these populations, migratory, non-migratory individuals may breed side by side, but spend the winter in completely different areas. It's shaped by ecological and genetic factors, resource availability being the biggest influence. When food becomes scarce, they simply move. Predation risk, weather conditions, and competition among individuals. We see patterns of this like kingbirds, partial migration, northern populations moving south during winter, and some fish like salmonids. Some will go to the ocean and some will choose to stay in freshwater. It's very interesting. From an evolutionary perspective, it's considered a stable survival strategy. And I imagine that this may happen more and more over time. The decision to migrate can also depend on circumstances, right? Dominance, competition, those sorts of things. So it's sort of like evolution in the making. It reminds us that migration is not always fixed or uniform. So as we step in closer, much of the Southwest occupies that position in the central flyway. They move through this region between breeding grounds, Because of its location and our diverse landscape, the Southwest serves as both a migration corridor and an important destination for many birds. Mountain ranges of the Southwest play a major role. Birds often use elevated landscapes, and ridgelines as navigation. Raptors in particular love to travel around mountain ranges. My first job ever was working for an organization, Hawkwatch International, if you've ever heard of it. And my job was to sit at a point, and this is in Montana, in the middle of nowhere, and to watch golden eagles migrate. And they would just fly without flapping. They're soaring over those lifts of wind from the mountain ranges, and we'd just get hundreds of them flying every day. So my job was to count them. It was a pretty great start. First time I've ever seen a mountain lion is there. So it can be fun work. So the Rio Grande in specific is one of the most important migration routes in the interior Southwest. Cottonwood, willow, riparian forest, wetlands attract huge numbers of songbirds, waterfowl, cranes, and raptors. So in New Mexico, we get amazing seasonal pulses of migration. One of the most iconic examples, of course, is the sandhill crane. They gather here in the wetlands and agricultural valleys. It's one of the greatest wildlife spectacles around here, I think. If you haven't seen it, I suggest going to see it. It's pretty remarkable. And it's very loud. We also have neotropical songbirds. Those are birds that travel to the tropics. Warblers, flycatchers, vireos, tanagers, and many others pass through our woods and our river habitat. So, for example, Middle Rio Grande, as I mentioned, it's a major migratory highway from Cochiti into north to Truth or Consequences in the south. The Bosque, where you'll see those cranes, is a major, they call it a premier stopover, a first class. Near Socorro, thousands of sandhill cranes, snow geese, and ducks congregate. And then, of course, the Pecos River Valley, a vital biological corridor. It's a stopover for birds. It goes all the way into West Texas. It's a rare, continuous lifeline of water. Okay, so why connectivity matters, right? It seems common sense. Migratory birds take numerous stops. Not all of them do that miraculous journey, 600 miles without stopping. Most birds stop every 100 to 200 miles, and they need to refuel. So that might be what you're seeing at your feeders this time of year. The exact number of stops depends on weather and all sorts of things and food. They'll stop for hours or days, which is kind of fun to think that you might have birds stopping just for an hour. It's not just about getting from one point to the other. It depends on the availability of habitat. So wetlands, playas, corridors, forests, grasslands, all of that is important. As Jonathan was alluding to, fragmentation disrupts the entire process, right? Roads, urban development, agriculture, other barriers break up this movement. They're forced to travel further between suitable habitats, expend more energy, and navigate unfamiliar and dangerous landscapes. So really, connectivity is the foundation of migration. When we protect connected landscapes, we're not just conserving habitat in one location, we are helping sustain the entire migration system that birds rely on. Got the sun in your eyes? So that's why organizations like the Land Conservancy are very important. They're a key role in providing habitat, especially in these large swaths of land that they're able to protect. Exceptions to the rule, of course. I knew I was going to get to this. The black-poll warbler, which is pictured here. This is the very drab female, not as beautiful as the male in that first picture. They've been shown to stop, that fly for 1,700 miles across the Atlantic in 2 to 3 days. So they just take off for days. They don't stop flying for 2 to 3 days. It's remarkable. They're only about this big. They're a tiny little songbird. What's cool is the work that we do, we often will have these birds in our hand before that migration happens, and we can see those globs of fat. And the warblers are really quite cool because they get the yellow stuff here, and they get it over here, and they get it around their thighs. It's pretty neat to see that. It always makes us happy when they get a high fat score. And then, of course, that ruby-throated hummingbird. They stop frequently, but they're capable of flying that 600 miles across the Gulf of Mexico. It's remarkable. I thought this was a neat map to show you that connectivity. This is eBird data, if you've ever heard of eBird, a great site. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology, the modelers identified important migration stopovers for several migrant species. And it speaks to that central flyway. The Texas coast is critical Migrants embarking on multi-day flights, if they encounter stormy weather, they can come back to the coast. Birds will turn around. They've been seen until things are just right. And of course, development is changing all of that, right? The Texas coast is a nice place to be, but there are wonderful places to go and see migratory birds along the Gulf of Texas. If you ever have a chance to go, there's also a great hawk watch location there where you can see people band hawks. In the Isthmus of Panama, geographically it makes sense. It's called the bottleneck. Millions of them will stop in Panama and Costa Rica every year. The entire global population of neotropical migratory species pass through this area. So on peak migration days, they'll fill the sky. If you're lucky enough to catch that, thrushes, warblers, tanagers, it's pretty neat. And last of all, the Santa Marta Mountains, not something people normally necessarily know about unless you've been to South America, but this mountain range that sits right there at that point in Colombia, it's a refueling station. And long distance migrants depend on this site heavily. They'll stay there for several days before moving further south or north. For example, one researcher found gray-cheeked thrushes spend 15 days in these mountains and nearly double their body mass before flying off. So it's important. Yeah.
In southern Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
in western Florida, you have Fort Morgan and Fort Goodness, which are good areas for birds.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been there during that time of year. Yeah, I imagine it's beautiful.
Probably the weather was bad. The birds, they coming in, once the Gulf, to about this height.
Hmm.
And as soon as the sand was visible,
They plop.
they plop.
Uh-huh. So cool. You got to see that, huh? That's very neat. Here we go. So some of the stopovers you think of are more obvious, right? Like our rivers and wetlands and lakes. But in New Mexico, we have our grasslands, right? Our shrublands, our ephemeral wetlands mostly. And most hidden in plain sight, and I talk about this because I used to work here and I visited a lot of properties that had playas. Playas are sort of the underspoken, valuable habitat that we have that a lot of people don't know about. There's shallow water catchment areas found at lowest point in the watersheds. A lot of the ranches here in New Mexico have playas on them in those big, open, vast, low-lying places, but not everybody knows that they have them. They often are filled with water, used as sort of a natural tank for cattle, not realizing that they're covering up something that's a natural phenomenon. What's neat about these places is that water will catch there, it'll rest, it'll evaporate, it'll crack, and then when the next rain comes, the water will filtrate down into the aquifer. So they're wonderful filtration systems, but they're also great catchments for birds. And I know we still have landowners that have playas in their land. You work with the playa people. We got to visit playas on one property up near Wagon Mound. And that was pretty neat to see some really strange, what you wouldn't expect, shorebirds hanging out there, out in the middle of the desert. It's pretty wild. So, of course, the downside to all this, the threats to migration seem pretty obvious, right? Human activity, habitat loss, fragmentation, hunting and fishing, climate change, right? All of that's affecting these birds. And lights. So as agriculture expands, I think that's one of the biggest shifts in habitat is agriculture, and of course, expansion and development. But he's right in saying that things like light pollution and electricity and all that stuff has an impact for sure. Of course, climate change, we've seen migration. So many migratory species rely on precise environmental cues, as we talked about, but those cues are becoming less predictable. And animals are arriving too early or too late to take advantage of critical food resources. And that actually has a name, phenological asynchronicity. Yes. Species may simply not be able to adapt quickly enough to these rapid environmental changes. So what do we do on a local level, right? Well, one of the most important things is to protect flyways and key stopovers, especially playas and other water bodies here in the Southwest. Shallow wetlands, ephemeral water bodies may look small, but they're really important. We need to maintain riparian corridors like the Rio Grande. Another one is reducing fragmentation. And all of that is connected, right? There's a connection between all of these things. Birds, along with many other wildlife, need landscapes to allow safe movement. Planning that keeps habitats connected and property ownership that keeps land connected is very important. What's encouraging is that local conservation can create continental scale benefits. So the key takeaway message: migration operates across multiple scales, from extraordinary long journeys to those small daily movements. Connectivity is the thread linking all these things together. It's an entire network of breeding, stopover, wetlands, forests, all of that stuff. And one piece of that network is lost or degraded, it can affect migration success far beyond our area. That's why local conservation matters. Protecting habitat here in New Mexico. We have such an interesting, diverse landscape, right? We've got rivers, we've got grasslands, we've got mountains, we've got desert, we've got ponderosa forests. It's pretty neat. And I know I always plug back to bats, but one of the fascinating things about what we have here in New Mexico is we have one of the highest diversities of bat species. And that's because of that variety of habitat, that everything from the north to south is so very different. So let me see if this will play for me. I don't know if it'll play. Yeah, here it goes. This is just a neat video if we can get it to work. No promises. There we go. So in many ways, migration reminds us that ecosystems do not recognize political boundaries. Birds connect communities, states, and countries through their journeys. The actions we take locally, restoring habitat, reducing fragmentation, conserving water, and protecting open space, scale up to global conservation benefits. By protecting habitats here at home, we help sustain one of the most remarkable natural phenomena on Earth, the movement of birds across an interconnected planet. And this is a neat video. You can see different versions of this. You can actually see it live. I think that it's the Cornell lab that also has a video that'll show you like what happened last night, how many birds were moving when, and they'll give you sort of a number. So let me see if I can get this to move on. There we go. Okay, so this could be a whole nother topic of conversation and presentation, so I won't get into it. But how do we know? How do we know what these birds are doing? We can't watch them at 37,000 feet, right?
Oh, right.
Right? Definitely. We have geolocators, radio telemetry at a smaller scale, satellites, GPS. Banding, as I mentioned earlier, is a very interesting sort of smaller scale way to keep track of birds. I've banded saw-whet owls, and then people have picked them up in different states, which is pretty neat if they band the owl or if they catch the owl. And of course, acoustic detection. That's something you can do locally here just to figure out what's around you. Now, that might not show you the exact bird in that movement and where that bird came from, but it'll definitely show you what's coming through your yard. And the technology is getting cheaper and pretty fun. So you can buy detectors and put them in your yard and record your birds and your bats. So I put one out here about 3 weeks ago, and I was able to hear about 26 different species of birds, which is pretty neat. It was about April 20th to like last week, peak migration. What's interesting is it's getting louder here, right? So having worked here before, it's very quiet in this building, but everything that's going on around here, it was very loud on my detector. So I had to sort of filter out that noise, but it's constant, right? And even at night, there's noise. But that's a pretty great species predictor right there. And what I did was I took little snippets of a handful of more commonly seen birds, and these are really neat. So when you get the data, it comes on an SD card. You can set the time period and bring it back and listen to it and take a snippet, something called a wave file. So I'm going to play these if it'll play, and I want you to tell me what species you think it is. That's the noise I was talking about. What's cool is every bird has its own little spectrogram. Very good. Woohoo, I wish I had candy to throw at you, but that's right. Oh, we do have candy. Here's another one. That was a house pitch. Yeah. It's a broadtail hummingbird. What's cool about their spectrogram is they all look like this little wave, which is really beautiful, I think. Birds are very predictable when you start learning this stuff because every bird has the same, it's very repetitive. They're actually quite easy once you start to see them. This was the most common bird I heard here. I'll play it again. She's cheating. It is. It's a canyon towhee. It's a canyon towhee. There's a ton of them here. That was the most common bird I heard. And we have spotted too. Yeah.
Raven.
Yeah, that's a raven. Very good. But there were crows here too. This one might throw you. I recorded at night too. Very good. You have a poor will here. I love them. They're adorable. Poor will.
Here?
Mm-hmm. I hear them a lot in Los Alamos where there's nothing around, but that's very cool that you have them here. Yeah. And then this might be hard. Maybe not. Give it a second. That's all I got. That's it. This one was surprising. This is an owl. And it's a barn owl. But I only heard it once. So I don't know if it's moving through or if it's just maybe nesting and kind of quiet and calling out, but that's pretty cool. Maybe in some of these old buildings. Barn owls are my favorite owl. It's yes, it does. Ash-throated flycatcher.
Oh.
Yeah, flycatchers. There you go. Should keep birding.
Okay.
Last one. I'm just trying to confuse you now. Yeah, yeah. It's a coyote. You hear all sorts of fun stuff on the detectors. Yep. So that all happened here, which is really neat. Woo, there he is again. And I think, oh, no, birds are going crazy. Not letting me, they're playing all at the same time. I did not plan that. That's very cool. Anyway, I think that's all I've got. So I'll stop with there. No, there we go. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely, my problem.
We do have time for a few questions from the audience. I know you took some during the presentation, but if folks have questions.
I can't guarantee I'll know the answer, but
Do you know about the use of artificial intelligence with the wind turbines?
yes. Yeah, and I know that mostly through the bat world. So there's detection equipment. Is that what you're talking about? Like when things are flying through? Yeah, and the curtailment of the turbines. Yeah, that stuff is coming hard and fast, which is good. So birds, are still getting smacked. It tends to be the bigger birds that are flying through that area. Bats are also a major concern within wind turbines. And what's weird about the bats is bats are not necessarily hitting turbines or getting caught in blades. It's the vortex of air that's being created around the turbine. So that they're getting swept in that. And I'm assuming that's happening to little birds too. But it's very cool. The technology that people are coming out with is starting to detect when these migration flows are happening and companies are being asked to slow down what they're doing. Yeah. Yeah. It takes a long time. Yeah. So they're using satellite imagery of bird movement. They can kind of see it coming. Yeah. And I think just knowing the certain times of year too. I don't know if the wind companies are necessarily happy about that, but it is the windiest time also here, right, in May when the birds are moving. So it's a catch. But yeah, artificial intelligence is incredibly helpful.
I
Yeah.
have a question about, many years ago, I went to a hot patch
Mhm.
in the Manzana
Yes.
Mountains.
Yeah.
It was in the fall,
Yeah.
and they were capturing birds, banding,
Yeah.
putting telemetry. Do they still do that?
Yeah. As far as I know,
That is the coolest thing.
it is the coolest thing. Were they using a little bird to pull them in to get, yeah. So funny thing about those birds, I don't know if it's what they were doing when you were there, but what they will do is put a pigeon or a little song, like a song sparrow, not a song sparrow, a house sparrow, and they'll put a little rope on the leg and they'll throw the bird out and the hawks will come down. And a lot of times they get whacked. Okay. Okay. To protect the prey. Okay. In the old days, they just threw the little bird out and he had a vest on. And those birds would actually get a day off. So they would throw the bird out for a day of getting smacked. And then the bird, if it survived, would get pulled in and get a day break and then be thrown out again. So I think they've gotten more sophisticated with it. But like when we do that with owls, we get to capture owls, which is cool. We use a mouse and then we let the owl have the mouse because it's like, what are you going to do? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Birds that we typically have here, and they come from like the kingbirds, for example.
Right.
So
That's a big question.
what kind of fish do they do?
Yeah. Well, that's all over the place, right? So we, because of our vicinity to the tropics, we get a lot of neotropical migrants. So we get a lot of warblers and tanagers and all those beautiful birds that move back and forth. But we do get those hawks that move along the mountain range. So the Rockies are significant. So we get major eagle migrations coming through. That's a hard question to answer. A huge variety, a huge diversity of all shapes and sizes.
The kingbirds, for
Mhm.
example, really are staying away,
Mhm.
all winter, and then now,
Yes.
do you know?
I don't think they go, kingbirds in specific don't go very far. And from what I understand, they'll go to the southern part of the state and across the border. And it depends on the species and it depends on what their drive is. But we are unique in that neotropical section of things. So if you go further south into Montana and as you go further north, you don't see that as much. So as a researcher, it's a neat place to be because you have more diversity. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question. That's a big one. Mhm.
It's under little flow chart or circular
Yeah.
flow chart thing,
Yeah.
the little local efforts.
Mhm.
Like add up to big, like it's often very overwhelming. The scale of catastrophe, or what local efforts are actually useful?
Well, I think preserving and creating connectivity, right? And so I think anytime a landowner is able to preserve a piece of land from development on any scale is significant. And I think it comes down to connectivity because those birds do have to stop every couple days. And that's what's changing is that inability to go back to where they were or have something within reach. So I think revegetation, restoration, planting trees, all of that stuff, but even providing healthy food to birds as they're coming through does not hurt. We were talking about feeding our birds. I mean, I think it helps the hummingbirds out. They will find other sources if they need to, but what's the harm if it's healthy? And water. Water's important. Yeah. Bird baths, all of that stuff can be really helpful. Yeah. And planting species of plants that those birds need. That's important too, native species, some off of the seeds that they need and all that, and the flowers. Yeah. Yep.
I had a question. Are you guys working on the Galisteo Basin Preserve? We've seen some signage out there that's part of the corridor, the migration corridor, and I know that they did a lot of stuff because that was all cattle ranches, but they did some stuff with places that would catch water, so the migratory birds can have water. Or do you work with them at all? I mean, is that
It's primarily the Santa Fe Conservation Trust that works out of Galisteo Basin, but we've done.
long time ago, like 15, 20 years ago, that they were doing that work. I don't know if it was the Santa Fe Conservation. Well, I was just curious if you were partnering Cause that's another connectivity,
Yeah.
right? Like.
It's a beautiful swath.
partnering With
Yeah.
other organizations, like the Santa Fe Conservation Trust that tries to buy land.
Hmm.
So are you guys involved? How do you have that connectivity with other?
Yeah, that's a great question. In terms of working with other landowners, I mentioned we were working in Corrales with the Indigenous Farm Hub to
Yeah, that's great.
protect that land right down by the Bosque, and right there in the flyway that sees so many migratory birds.
Yeah, the Bosque is huge.
One of our landowners taught a cruise up at Ute Creek Ranch, which has an ephemeral stream, Ute Creek, through it. She's established a migratory bird refuge, basically, on her land, on roughly, I think it's about 500 or 1,000 acres of her 8,000-acre ranch.
She's
There.
unique in that she's part of that. So Audubon, there are these cool resources that some people, don't hear about until they learn about places like this. But the Audubon is part of is it the Audubon Working Lands
Hmm.
program? And so there's funding opportunity to a lot of landowners on a big scale and a small scale to have state grants and other private grants that allow them to do restoration work. I remember there was a landowner up north who got an NRCS grant, and he was like redoing his wetland,
Hmm.
planting stuff and digging up old, caked mud and moving things around. And there are funding sources for people to do rehabilitation and restoration. And if you have land that needs work.
Well, also I know that the Institute for Applied Ecology in New Mexico has a huge program called River for Monarchs or something. So they've done all these.
Yeah, the big pollinator people.
Yeah,
I love that.
so
Yeah.
That's gotta help the migratory birds, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they've done all these plantings of thousands and thousands of
Hmm.
pollinator. I actually did a little volunteer day with them down, not at the Bosque, but what's the other one there that's getting more popular now? Other bird watching place, right? It's a little closer than the Bosque. Anyway. Yeah, so I mean, I just wonder, because I always wonder how nonprofits can work better together because these projects are, I mean, these concerns are global and huge.
Right.
I'm always curious about how the nonprofits can collaborate and be friends better. I mean, there must be some competition for funding, but
I think I think funding resources is sometimes the limiting factor. I agree. I think it's often getting, especially about those fund sources, restoration projects that people can get paid for, but also learning about places like this. Not everybody knows that it exists. And so it's a constant push, I think, to get the word out and spread the good.
And you mentioned the
deeds.
Institute of Applied Ecology. We're actually working with them. They're doing a vegetation inventory of our land here. So we're actually on 260 acres, about 100 of which is up here, and the other 160 is down to the south. And then we're also working with a group called Wildlands Network. They're doing a wildlife survey, basically, and that will inform basically a restoration and management plan of our land here. And then we hope to actually implement everything from more wildlife friendly fencing around the perimeter to some watershed restoration projects, and then with Institute of Applied Ecology, reintroducing and replanting some native vegetation and grasses. And that could be a great segue to our next speaker event. Our last one of the spring is coming up on June 2nd. That will be with Caitlin Haas of the Xerxes Society, which is kind of the preeminent pollinator organization, not just in the West, but in the country. And so they actually have pollinator kits available for both, just your backyard, but also for larger ranches and facilities like ours. So they're actually planting one of I think it's a 3,000 square foot pollinator garden in the back of our office here in August. So she's going to talk a little bit about what that's going to look like. And then, if you're interested in getting one for your backyard, you can talk to her more about that then. June 2nd, I believe. Yeah. So Wednesday.
What's fascinating about the pollinator work that's being done and sort of the attention being given to that is even those gardens, those pollinator gardens on a small scale, butterflies and things are coming to them. You know, it's being, I mean, we just have small patches of it where I work that we've planted, and you know, we see monarch caterpillars and eggs happening, and we just throw out milkweed to people whenever we can, get the milkweed seeds, put it down where it's a very hardy plant. It likes it out here, different species of milkweed. So it's effective. It really is effective. Monarchs are one of those things that it's potentially listed species under the Endangered Species Act, which would have a pretty big impact on all sorts of things across the country. But so I think there's a big pushback not to have it happen. But those are definitely declining because of loss of their plants.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, even
Let the seeds on the ground, you know.
well, I mean, you could till a little bit. You could water it. There's showy milkweed is the one that I think does really well here, but look up different milkweed species. If you've ever been down or near the Rio Chama in the spring, it's pretty wild. It's just like milkweed for miles. It's very cool. So really you could just take some of that and put it in places, but they will find it. Yeah, it's very cool that you're doing a pollinator garden.
Yeah, and before you plant the native species, you often have to get rid of invasive ones. And so right now we actually have some goats that are addressing our kind of invasive Russian thistle tumbleweed issue back in this arroyo. So they'll be here for about 2.5 weeks, clearing out a bunch of those invasives, and then we'll hopefully prep that for the reintroduction of native grasses sometime next spring.
Have they moved?
There's called the goat guys. Mhm.
The goat
Yep.
guys.
Save them,
Yep.
getting more fun.
Mhm.
So it's like that pollinator garden, you said it was 3,000 square feet.
Mhm.
Is that gonna be, do you enlist volunteers to come help, or how do you?
I'm sure Caitlin could use all the help she can get. So, yeah, come back June 2nd, and maybe she'll put you to work.
Tuesday?
I it might be the 3rd then. It's the 3rd. Yeah, I'm mistaken. It's that Wednesday. Yep.
You seeing sparrow quail? On this property? I used to see them all.
Yeah, I'm trying. Have you seen them?
recorded them.
Did you?
Yep.
Mhm.
I recorded them. I didn't see them. My detector picked them up. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'm sure they used to be all over the place.
Yeah, we've got, I think, 8 wildlife cameras on the property right now that are collecting all the data. So hopefully, yeah, we'll see some when we have a chance to analyze the thousands of photos that those things are taking. Yeah,
Some intern
that's
is like,
where AI can
click,
really
click.
come in handy. Yeah.
This is a detector. So this is a big boy right here. This is a company called Wildlife Acoustics. There's a couple different companies that do it, but I really like them. This is they're getting cheaper, which is nice. This is called an SM4. It's got giant batteries. You can get solar panels, the whole thing. Takes 2 SD cards. What's cool is SD cards are getting bigger, right? So you can do like 2 terabyte SD card. So we have detectors like this down on the White Rock Canyon looking for cuckoos. I don't think they're there, but we just leave them down there for 4 months. We just let them record. But you can get like hand-sized detectors. You can get audio moths, they're called, and they're like $100, and you can put them outside your house.
We attended your app
Oh yeah.
talk in the fall and you
Yeah.
mentioned about the phone plug-in.
Yes.
And so we got one
Okay.
and I just started using it.
Uh-huh.
And after 6 nights of recording, we have 11 species of bats. Oh,
That's amazing. Where do you live nearby?
yeah, just off the Old Santa Fe Trail.
Wow. Yeah, those things are neat. You were talking about artificial intelligence. They now have bat auto ID. So by the chirps, they can tell your species at live. Yeah. Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah. They're great. Yeah, you can do ultrasonic or acoustic. You can do it all. Yeah.
All right. How about another round of applause for Milu?
Thank you. My pleasure. I'm gonna have a snack. Grab a snack right now. Thank you, Jonathan. Here, I'm gonna give this back to you. Thank you.
A lot of they want to